Got him. I got that one. I hopped it off the bottom. Little guy, but it's a start. And he ate it. That's not a bad deal. He ate it. There we go. A nice cold, late fall, early winter bass here at Alamo Lake on a jig. We just pulled in. He's not a big one, but it gives us a little something to start with. You know, today we're at Alamo Lake. I haven't been here in well over a year. I like this lake though. I mean, the first time that I did team tournaments with my dad back in the, I don't know, late 80s, early 90s, whatever it was, when we were doing some team tournaments, we actually came here for the first time ever seeing the lake, never practiced, and just stepped on the water and ended up with a 5th place finish on spinnerbaits. I loved it. It was a different time of year, obviously, but I've been coming back ever since, every so often, and I love this lake. It's a long ways from home, but it's a little warmer here, so it makes it kind of nice. Today we're dealing with a little bit of stained water conditions. Not bad, it's not bad. And the lake seems to be a little higher than what I'm used to seeing it, really, to be honest with you. And then I came to the dam area. I always feel safe in that area because when we put our boat on the water today, I noticed that the water temperature was 57 degrees. When you have 50 to 7 degree water temperatures, you know, there's a couple of things that happens this time of year, okay? The bass normally start schooling up. They'll school deep too, and they'll start biting shad. And then there's other fish that are what I call home fish that'll stick in certain areas on rock bluffs, things like that, that you can catch on jigs, things like that. I'll tell you, I almost switched over to the smoke sparkle jig. I'm throwing an actual crawdad colored jig right now, and it's just a spider jig on a 1/2 ounce jig head. But what I love about this particular bait on these desert lakes is, man, you can crawl this thing, you can even swim this bait. And that's what I was doing, kind of hopping it up over the rocks so I don't get hung up. And I was just kind of hopping it over, and that fish hit. That little tail right there, this is made by Gary Yamamoto, that spider jig there. It's the 301, I believe it is, color pattern. I really love it. It's got a little purple, a little green in it. The 330 is one of my favorites for the Cinco. It's got the little, it's got the little copper in it as well to imitate the crawdad. I figured we'd start with this a little bit after seeing the water temperature, just to see what's going on, because I don't see a whole lot of action going on the lake, and we're dealing with a high pressure. Usually when you're dealing with a high pressure, a lot of times you gotta slow down. So that's one thing to remember, is slow down a little bit. If you can't find that spoon bite or something like that, and you wanna go down the bank, throw a Texas rig, a Carolina rig, a jig, things like that work really well. We have calm weather conditions as well, which is terrible, in my opinion, for the spinnerbait or crankbait or reaction type stuff. Not that you can't catch them. I've caught them in calm water a lot, but it seems that tends to do better with reaction when you have a little bit of breeze on the water. Right now it's calm. So we're gonna slow down, take our time, see if we can catch some fish here today at Alamo Lake. Got him. Got him. You get in here, dude. I was just saying, if they're on this sandy stuff, that'd be great. Look at that. Look at that. Come here, son. You're done. You're done. You know, and that's when you know, as far down as that hook is, that they're eating that bait. And that's a good bait you're throwing. Just got to find where they're hanging out at. Not a giant fish. Oh, look at this. Look at this. Somebody had caught this fish before, and it's got the hook right there. Look at that. We're gonna save that fish, and we're gonna pull that hook out. Look at that. That little baby tiny hook, like a salmonade hook. Somebody had that fish on and broke it off. We got the hook out of his face. He's back to living the dream. I'll tell you what we did was decided to come down more of I'm looking for the type of structure they might be holding on to hit a jig. And a lot of times, you find some of this pebbled rock where crawdads like to lay and all that stuff. You can find fish in this area. The retrieve and the throw on this thing is I just cast it out there. I let it fall to the bottom. Gotta let it get to the bottom. So once it falls to the bottom, I'm basically sweeping it with the rod tip. There's a couple of different retrieves you can do with this. You can hop it. The thing is, remember that when the fish are lethargic and it's, you know, cold, the water's cold, they're not moving much. And so to lift the rod tip up from 9 o'clock to 12 o'clock, you know, you're bringing that bait up and it's floating way up here, and those fish just aren't in that kind of mood today. So what I'm doing is I'm basically crawling it across like a little crawdad would come across the bottom, okay? And that's all I'm doing, but I'm using my rod tip. There's times I gotta come over the rock, like I'm coming over the rock. I can feel the rock down there. But there's also times you just gotta sweep the rod tip, you know? And just drag the thing across the bottom real slow. And when you do that, your odds are better, especially when the fish are cold and it's just a tough bite. You're better just moving it inches at a time versus 2 or 3 feet at a time trying to move too fast. Now, in the summertime, when the fish are really active, you can hop that thing, do whatever you want, swim it real fast, whatever, and a lot of times they'll hit it. But when they're not active, you want to crawl that thing. I always tell people you're counting the rocks, and it really does matter. I mean, you're just feeling every little thing, but you have to sweep with your rod tip. If you don't sweep with your rod tip and you use the reel and point the thing, you don't really feel what's on the bottom like you can if you sweep the rod tip. You buy these rods, they're a tool so you can feel how the bottom is. Is it rocky? Is it sandy? Blah, blah, blah. That's what these nice rods are for. This Taipan rod, I can feel everything down there. So when I'm sweeping it across there, I can feel all that pebbled rock and feel it coming over that stuff. Got him. I got that one, dragging that jig. Oh, that's a little better fish down there. They're still not giants, but we are catching a few fish on this jig, and he ate it as well. So, keeping the boat somewhat deep, going down this bank right now. I'm keeping the boat in 25, 30 foot of water and just kind of casting up there and dragging the jig. Just kind of drag it back, hop it along. Learn what that bite feels like. It's not hard. You're dragging it across there. Usually if it feels alive, it normally is alive. And that's what I tell a lot of people. Oh, well, what's the bite feel like? A lot of times it can be a thump thump. A lot of times you're just dragging it across and all of a sudden it feels spongy, but your line's going sideways. You just gotta learn to feel with your rod, your line. You know, I use 14 to 17 pound test line in open water with this. 17 to a little bit heavier if you're gonna, and then you'll throw a weed guard on or something like that on your jig if you're throwing up into thick trees and things like that. But right now we're just kind of going down in open water. There's brush down there, but I can pull this through the brush pretty good without the weed guard. Got him. I got that one. He was down there a little deeper. Just working that thing right off the wall there. This is crazy. This is not a big fish though still. Boy, he's cold. But what I did was, let him go. This point and that point go across. It shallows up in between the points. So you're actually going up into a shallow spot there and then it drops off on each side. So I'm just taking this area right here, and there's shad down there. So I'm taking this area right here and I'm just kind of letting my jig fall down into that 30, 35 foot of water, and it's got them bunched up right there on that edge. Got him. Oh, almost fell out the boat. Oh, come on. You down there a little deeper off that ledge? He ate it though. Look at this. Oh, he's got it good. All right, come on, bud. Not another real giant, but we went back down this bank. I figured before I leave, you don't leave fish to find fish unless you're looking for bigger ones. Right now, we're just looking to get bit and have some fun. We will be moving here soon, but I thought, well, you know, a lot of times it's about angles. You're dragging this way, you come back this way and drag the other way. A lot of times you can pick up bites you didn't get before. If you get bit down a bank, definitely go back up the other way and try it. But our boat, again, is sitting in 43 foot of water right here. And I like that because we can fish the bank, especially if you're used to throwing to the bank quite often. You can see what you're throwing at and just drag it back toward the boat in that deep water. So if they're in 30 foot of water, 27 foot of water, you still got an opportunity to catch them. You know, I truly believe that a lot of people that go fishing just on a weekend, things like that, it's hard to learn how to fish deep water, you know? And I know I had my issues with it when I was younger because I grew up in lakes that were really shallow. What helped me was getting my boat someplace where I could at least see the bank, cast to the bank, but yet my boat might be sitting in 40 foot of water. And you learn to drag the bait back in that deep water. You might be thrown to the bank a lot of times, but you might be catching these fish in 30 foot of water, 35 feet of water. And so it helps you learn how to fish deep, and you put yourself in a little bit more comfort zone to catch deep fish. Because a lot of times you're not gonna catch fish every week, you know, in 2 foot of water, especially during the winter when the water gets cold and they move out to that deep water on points, things like that. And if you don't want to move out in the middle of the lake and feel uncomfortable out there, because you might not know your electronics as well, things like that, you know your electronics enough to put yourself in deep water and still see the bank. If you can do that and throw jigs, drop shots, things like that, and just kind of ease the bait back all the way to the boat in this time of year when it's slow like that, you're going to catch fish. Oh, I got a good one here. That's a little bit better fish. Yeah, that is a little bit better fish. Ooh, yeah, that's a little bit better fish. That's a little bit better Alamo fish right there. Dragging it off that point, right on that cup. Look at that. Oh, don't you, he swallowed it. He swallowed it. He's a lot bigger than the ones we've been catching, but look at how they're getting that jig. You know, if they were hitting on the outside or something like that, you might ought to change colors, but I don't see no sense in changing colors on that little guy. Boy, he's got it down there good. Got it. Look at that. Yeah, a little better fish. We're not catching giants today, folks, but the thing is we are getting bit. It's cold, and you know, we're just basically covering this one bank. We went down it, we're coming back, and then we'll move somewhere else. But I think the one thing you can be rest assured of is that your jigs do work, you know? And I've got frays in my line. That's another thing to check when you're throwing a jig like this, is there's brush, those fish can get you around brush, rock. Now this is 17-pound test line. I like that with a heavy action rod, but no matter what size line you're using, always periodically, especially when you're getting hung and pulling it loose, fill your line for any kind of nicks or frays. If you feel anything, retie. I know a lot of folks don't like doing it, but if you don't, you might get that big fish bite throughout the day and lose him because you neglected to retie. So always retie. It's better to play safe than sorry. Hey folks, for my tip of the week, one thing really important about throwing this jig is, you know, when you're fishing in a sandy area or something like that, you can sweep the rod tip, it's always best. But when you get into that chunk of rock, like what we have there, what you want to do is hop the jig a little bit over top of that chunk rock, like what we have up there. Every time you feel a rock, just kind of pop it up over, pop it up over. And I'm not talking about a big sweep. Watch my rod tip, how I just kind of pop it up over those rocks right there, just a few inches at a time. And what happens is it'll come up over the rocks like this. If you try pulling it, like sweeping your rod tip, you're just gonna get hung and you're gonna wedge the bait in the rock. And I see it happen a lot when I'm out fishing with friends. And so it's really important to remember that when sometimes you just have to change the retrieve based on what you're fishing. So if you're fishing a real chunk of rock like that, it's hard to sweep your rod tip because you're constantly getting hung in that stuff. So you want to kind of ease it up out of there. And then maybe you could be 5 feet a little farther and it's a little sandier, and then you can sweep the rod tip. I want to show you the difference in the styles of jigs that you can throw when you're out fishing. This particular one is the one we've been throwing, and it's called the spider jig, okay? And it's a fun, but it's an exposed hook, obviously. And I like to throw this when we have a little pebbled rock, when you have sand, areas like that, deep water that doesn't have a lot of brush in it. When you get into where you're having a lot of brush, you're getting hung up a lot, things like that, then you go to this style of jig, which I really like. And this style of jig has what we call the brush guard. And this is the brush guard. Now, when you first pull these out of the package, I always like to spread them out sideways so the bait actually rolls over the rock or the bush, and it works really good. But that particular jig there, and we'll still put a twin tail on the back of that, and you can throw it. We can throw that right now in the same places we're throwing this other. The only difference is we might not get hung up as much. But when you're fishing really deep water, say that 35 foot of water, 35 foot of water, it's a lot easier to get this hook in without the brush guard than it is trying to set the hook on that, something like that. Not that you can't catch fish on it, but I would rather be a little bit shallower, throwing it up around brush, you know, 0 to say 15 foot of water with this kind of thing, you know. That way you can really set the muscle to them. There's another little Alamo Lake bass. Well, they're biting that jig. We've been having fun on the jig today. Yeah, come on in here, son. Got it. Whew. Okay. Oh my goodness. Nice looking little fish. We'll let it go. You know, we just came around the corner and I saw how this looks bluffy to me. So I wanted to come over here and just fish some of these walls, some of this pebbled rock like this, and see if we can't get another bite. And here we go, right off the bat, right off the point, and catch fish. So they're here. You know, a lot of times once you find an area that catches fish, the whole part of doing some kind of a pattern for yourself and re-catching fish in other areas is finding areas that look similar to what you just caught fish in. So instead of going and fishing a bunch of flats, things like that, I want to find something that looks really steep to me. So that's what I was looking for, something steep, a little gravelly, and we came back over here and caught fish right off the bat, right off this point. So we're working our way down, and you can see it still has the pebbled rock. Got him right off that point. Right off that point. He hit it on the way down. That fish hit it on the way down, and he still ain't done. He's like, give me that. He's like, give me that. Oh my goodness, what a fun day today. Come here, buddy. Ah, you ain't big, come here. You know, you have those days. You really, truly do have those days here in Arizona where you go out and just catch a bunch of fun fish. It's pretty much what we've done today with our jig. Little spider jig went a long ways today just to get bit and have some fun in this cold water, and boy, he's cold. But I had a blast today. You know, Alamo has a lot to offer. They got camping spots, they got some great facilities here, and it's out of the way of a lot of people. We haven't seen but maybe 2 people on the lake today. It's been fun, and it's a beautiful day. It's starting to warm up a little bit. It was a little chilly this morning for sure, but the one thing great about Arizona is if you have a nice day like this, it heats up a little bit. You can get out and have some fun. Get out, try Alamo Lake, try some jigs, and all's not lost in the wintertime. As soon as we start going in there, you can still get out and catch fish. You just got to learn to slow down a little bit sometimes. Thanks for joining us on the water. We'll see you next week. I'm Johnny Johnson. Now, see, that's what I'm talking about, folks.